Today's subject, I think, is something that we can all relate to. Um, I think anyone who's ever had any ambition at all should be able to relate to this. I want to just talk about the competitive nature of human society and the world that we're in. Um, how this can sometimes be a bit overwhelming. Now, let me break that down a bit. Human achievement can be a wonderful thing. I was watching recently footage of the Apollo 11 program. That particular program, obviously, there was a series of Apollo missions, and it's remarkable. It's very inspiring. It's a wonderful thing, and there's many other examples of this on Earth. Human achievement should be celebrated. Human achievement is something to look at and to feel inspired by, but we also need to consider the people left behind. Now, what I mean by this is, in any competition, you're going to have a winner and a loser. And of course, in a well-spirited competition, there's that phrase, there are no losers. But the more, let's say, dogmatic competitions, and that is the designation. Um, I think life can be immensely frustrating when you feel that you are just trying to get by each day. In fact, a lot of this ties into the subject of mental health, so there might be some overlap with this. But I believe in bringing people up and encouraging people, not tearing people down, unless that is they are really, you know, doing something terrible and hurting others. But in any ambition in this world, we've heard that phrase, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. That's true to an extent, I think, to an extent. But a very important thing that's left out of that is that everyone in this world who has achievements, there is at some point other people involved. Now, this is not to say that people don't work hard on their own initiative and get what they want. That's not what I'm saying. But let's consider it, right? If you want to get into politics and you want to, what do you have to do? You have to get elected. Other people involved, the electorate, the people that you're going to be serving. Well, in theory, serving. That is if you're not corrupt. But the principle is there. That is the people you're serving. So they are the people. Then there's your election agent. There's a political party that you're part of. Even as an independent, you'll still have an agent and canvassers and so on. So you need to have a good rapport with them in order to get the work done. If you're an athlete, there's that relationship with the trainer. If you're training for the Olympics, the trainer needs to know that he or she can rely on you to, do that 8 mile run at 5 in the morning and other intense expectations. Um, if you are a writer, that's a pretty independent endeavor, but there's still the publisher, there's still the business side of that you need to maneuver. So I think as a starting point, we need to accept that we could do great things in this world. We can get great things, but unless you're a dictator that's feared by your people, in which case you'll probably end up being overthrown in a coup d'etat anyway. Um, Everyone has to compromise on some level. Look, we don't live in a fair world. There isn't an equilibrium. Unfortunately, human rights are not distributed equally. They should be, but they're not. So some people perhaps get rich through corruption, through walking on the backs of others, and then we look at characters like that and we think, how can a person like that be enjoying life whilst a good, honest person is struggling? So the world is not a fair place. That's a pessimistic outlook. But I also think there's an optimistic side, which is that there is human empathy. And for every act of human cruelty, I believe there is also kindness. And I don't want to be overly sentimental about this, but when I say that's why, I mean, thinking of a competitive situation, um, I am a big believer in respecting people's sacrifice or respecting their efforts. Now, someone who's extremely competitive, they might say, "Oh well, I lost; it doesn't matter." But there is a point of respect there. In a boxing match, for example, I always respect both guys that enter the ring. That's the dynamic because they have both been through the gym, they've both been through all the physical and mental ordeal that that takes. When boxing fans disrespect fighters, it makes me angry. I never used to watch Britain's Got Talent and X Factor because I feel that they were about competition, but there wasn't. If we compare that to say 90s television, like for example, Stars in the Rise, there was a bit of competition in that. If you remember the show hosted by Matthew Kelly, people basically imitated their favorite artist, music artist, and they'd go for a whole makeover and they'd sing, and they had to have a voice. Like it wouldn't just be anyone. They did have to have an ability to sing and look somewhat like the subject they were portraying. But it was all good natured. Like there was a competition factor in which one of the five would win at the end, but they were all kind of, you know, Matthew Kelly was always encouraging them, and I just felt it was a good atmosphere. Contrast that with something like Britain's Got Talent or X Factor, where people deemed to be not good enough are literally jeered off. I think it's very mean spirited, and for me, it's uncomfortable viewing. I've never thought bullying was entertaining ever. And even if you think bullying's maybe a bit hyperbole, well, you try considering that you're in that position, you're in front of thousands of people, you're trying your best, maybe you get stage fright, maybe you're nervous, and all they could do is boo at you. It's, I think it's disgusting actually. But there's other examples. This is the same reason I don't like Gordon Ramsay. I never see him encouraging anyone. It's always about shouting people down and telling them how useless they are and so on. Um, I get that in pressurizing environments, particularly, for example, in politics or a boardroom or sports. I know people can't be wrapped in cotton wool. I know that there are expectations and deadlines and demands. That's all understandable. But I think there also needs to be, in that competitive atmosphere, a situation of some human empathy or some civil behavior because the most important thing in this world, maybe in terms of being successful, is being successful in and of yourself, not what other people think success is. And this is a very, very important thing. It's not up to anyone else to decide whether you're successful or not. Outwardly, there is like, the multimillionaire who set up several companies and, he's got a luxury mansion and, he's having the living high life. On the surface, he's successful. But what if he ends up being like Jordan Belfort and becoming a drug addict because he finds the party lifestyle too much? Or, success in that sense. What's to say that someone with barely any money in their pocket who has kind of built up something from scratch, but they haven't necessarily got material reward, but they've done what they want to do in life. What's to say that they're not successful? I really think that success is about what we determine in ourselves best to be. And in a competitive environment, obviously there's only one winner and one loser, but um, many of, just to use the boxing example, many of the greatest fighters lost. Leon Spinks has just passed away, the heavyweight champion from the 70s, who famously beat Muhammad Ali. Um, well, Ali actually won in the rematch, so that's just an example of coming back. but full respect to Dion Spinks. He scored one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. Um, but I do think that I'm a realist. Not everyone in this world has the same abilities. Not everyone is going to get to the top. But for me, it's important to build people up and encourage them. I see inspiring people. Take Chris Hadfield, for example, the Canadian astronaut. What does he do? He shows what his trade is. He's an astronaut. He does things that most people will never imagine. He's retired now, but he used that to educate people, to show them things, to encourage them. Um, he never took this attitude, "Oh, I'm an astronaut. I'm better than everyone else." Um, he came across as a very amicable guy. Comes across as a very amicable guy. So I feel strongly that if you have success, you need to inspire people by encouraging them, by building people up, not by tearing them down. That's why I've no time for the likes of Gordon Ramsay, because I've no doubt that the man's got skill, but I just don't see what's entertaining about yelling in someone's face and telling them that they're useless. And I never have. That's just one prominent example. And I get different environments require different sort of expectations. I mean, you're not going to get the same pressure in a yoga camp, a yoga retreat, as you would in, say, a marine drill yard. Obviously not. But a lot of this is also about choice. Like if people are getting into a particular endeavor and they know it's tough, um, there are issues with knowing what you're getting into. But I think we could all benefit from being a little bit more empathetic, understanding, and kind. Kindness is not some woolly, sentimental thing. I think it really is important. Now, of course, that's not to say, just being nice all the time. When I speak up about injustice as I see it, I don't beat around the bush, and I can be very blunt and critical of people in power who I think are not doing what they can to do their job in tackling that. So I can be quite critical, but I'm doing it in the understanding that they're in a position of power to begin with, and I would never ever threaten anyone unless it hurt someone dear to me. But I would never just threaten someone because I didn't like their views or I didn't like them. That would be just do that. Right, I'll round this up. But I think we all have our own skills. We're all individuals. We're all good at things, and sometimes people have good intentions and they try to sort of say, "Oh, you should do this or you should do that." We also need to kind of respect people's boundaries and respect that people have their own schedules and just because you think something's easy doesn't mean someone else is going to find it easy. Um, so also not being too pushy is important, but just about it's really not about being the best in everything. It's about enjoying life. It's about finding success as you see it. Now, for some people, that threshold is going to be a lot higher than others. Some people are just naturally a lot more ambitious than others. I'm pretty ambitious, so I set very high bars for myself. And quite frankly, doing that has probably caused me some of my depression in the past by basically being too hard on myself. Yeah. This year I've made a concerted effort to I made a video about this recently, just relax a little bit more, just not let things get together. Life is stressful, life is hard, but it can also be rewarding, it can also be enjoyable. It's never all bad, or rarely. So that's something to take on board. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.